Commander Jake Harrison stared at the massive blue planet spinning slowly below his ship. After 6 months of traveling through deep space, he and his crew had finally reached Kepler 442b. The planet looked perfect from orbit, with green continents and white clouds swirling across its surface. But something was wrong with the pictures they were getting. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Dr. Lisa Morgan from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien life and old civilizations. Her voice sounded confused and excited at the same time. Jake walked over to her computer screen. The images showed huge stone buildings rising from a jungle valley. The structures were enormous, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. They stretched for miles across the landscape, with towers that reached toward the sky like fingers. "What am I looking at, Lisa?" Jake asked. "That's the problem, sir. According to every database we have, there should be nothing down there. No ruins, no cities, no signs that anyone ever lived on this planet. But look at these buildings. They're clearly made by intelligent beings, and they're old. Really old." Lieutenant Ben Cooper joined them at the screen. He was the ship's weapons officer, a young man who always seemed ready for trouble. "Maybe our databases are wrong," he said. "Space is big. We can't know everything about every planet." Lisa shook her head. "No, Ben. This isn't just missing information. Look at this." She pulled up another screen showing star charts and galactic records. Every single database says this planet has never had intelligent life. Not just human databases, but alien ones, too. The Centauri Union, the Vegan Republic, even the old Arcturus Empire. All of them say this world is empty. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In his 20 years of space travel, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. "Take us down," he ordered. "I want to see these ruins up close." The USS Meridian descended through the planet's atmosphere. The ship was not built for war, but for exploration. It carried scientists and equipment for studying new worlds and new forms of life. As they got closer to the surface, the ruins became even more impressive. The buildings were made of a dark stone that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered the walls, carved deep into the rock. Some of the structures were still standing tall, while others had fallen into piles of rubble. But even the broken buildings were enormous, suggesting that whoever built them was much larger than humans. They landed in a clearing near the largest building. Jake, Lisa, and Ben put on their environmental suits and stepped outside. The air was breathable, but they were not taking any chances on an unknown world. The first building they entered was like a cathedral, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows above them. The walls were covered with the same strange symbols they had seen from orbit. Lisa immediately started taking pictures and measurements. "Jake, look at this," she called out. She was standing in front of a wall covered with what looked like a timeline. Pictures showed the development of a civilization, from primitive beginnings to advanced technology. "They called themselves the Vorthak," Lisa said, reading from a translation device. "These symbols tell their history. They were an advanced race, much more advanced than us. They had faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, even some kind of time technology." Ben was examining other parts of the room. "If they were so advanced, what happened to them? Where did they go?" Lisa continued studying the wall. Her face grew pale as she translated more of the symbols. According to this, they didn't just die out, they were destroyed. But not by war or disease or natural disaster. She looked up at Jake with fear in her eyes. "They were erased." "What do you mean?" "Erased," Jake asked. "The symbols are hard to translate, but it seems like ships came from the sky. Massive ships that didn't attack the Vorthak with normal weapons. Instead, they used something that made the Vorthak never exist in the first place. The timeline was changed so that the Vorthak civilization never happened." Ben laughed nervously. "That's impossible. You can't change the past." But Lisa was not laughing. She had found another section of the wall, one that showed images of the attacking ships. They were unlike anything in human or alien databases. The ships seemed to bend space around them, and the weapons they fired looked like tears in reality itself. "Look at this final image," Lisa said, pointing to the last symbol on the wall. It showed the Vorthak homeworld, but it was fading away, like smoke. The Vorthak knew they were going to be erased. They left this record as proof they existed, hoping someone would find it and remember them. Jake felt his hands shaking. If the Vorthak were erased from history, how can we see these ruins? How can we read their story? I don't know, Lisa admitted. Maybe being on this planet protected the ruins somehow. Maybe the erasure wasn't complete. But Jake, if this is real, if there really are ships out there that can erase civilizations from history itself, then we're all in terrible danger. As if responding to her words, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The voice of their pilot, Captain Rick Stone, came through their radios. Commander Harrison, you need to get back to the ship right now. We're picking up massive energy readings from the edge of the system. Something big is coming, and it's coming fast. Jake, Lisa, and Ben ran back to their ship as quickly as they could in the heavy gravity. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, they could see space beginning to distort near the outer edge of the solar system. Whatever was coming was so large and so powerful that it was bending light itself. Get us out of here, Jake ordered. Full speed back to human space. But as they prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Jake had a terrible feeling that they were already too late. The Vorthak had been erased from history for asking too many questions and discovering too much. Now humanity had made the same mistake. The hunt was about to begin. 3 days passed before the strange ships finally appeared. Commander Jake Harrison had tried to contact Earth and nearby human colonies, but his messages kept getting lost in space. It was as if something was blocking all communication from the Kepler system. The USS Meridian was not alone anymore. Captain Ellen Davis had arrived with her warship, the USS Constellation, just hours before the alien vessels showed themselves. Ellen was Jake's old friend from the Space Academy, and she had brought her ship to investigate why the Meridian had gone silent. Jake, what exactly did you find down there? Ellen asked over the video communication link between their ships. Her face looked worried on the screen. Something that shouldn't exist, Jake replied. A civilization that was wiped out of history itself. Ellen, I think we're in serious trouble. Before Jake could explain more, both ships' alarms started screaming. The space around them began to shimmer and bend like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then the ships appeared. There were 3 of them, each one larger than a human city. They were not made of metal or any material that human sensors could identify. Instead, they seemed to be built from twisted space itself. Light bent around them in impossible ways, making them hard to look at directly. When the crew tried to focus on the ships, their eyes began to hurt. What are those things? Whispered Lieutenant Ben Cooper from the Meridian's bridge. Dr. Lisa Morgan was studying her instruments, but they were giving readings that made no sense. The ships exist, but they also don't exist. It's like they're here and not here at the same time. My equipment can't get a solid reading on them. On the Constellation, Dr. Alex Turner was having the same problem. He was the ship's science officer, a thin man with thick glasses who understood physics better than anyone in the human fleet. Captain Davis, these vessels are operating outside normal space-time. They're using some kind of technology that lets them exist in multiple dimensions at once. The alien ships moved without any visible engines. They simply glided through space like ghosts, positioning themselves around the 2 human vessels. No communication came from them, no warnings or demands. They just waited in the darkness like hunters watching their prey. Try to contact them, Ellen ordered her communication officer. I've been trying, Captain. They're not responding to any frequency we use. It's like they don't even hear us, or maybe they just don't care. Jake had a terrible feeling in his stomach. Ellen, I think we should run. These ships destroyed an entire civilization. We can't fight them. Too late for that, Ellen replied grimly. They're powering up weapons. The alien ships began to glow with a cold blue light. But this was not the warm glow of human technology, or even the harsh light of known alien weapons. This light seemed to eat at reality itself, making the space around it look thin and fragile. All ships, prepare for emergency jump to faster than light speed, Ellen commanded. We need to warn Earth about these things. But as the human ships began charging their jump drives, the aliens attacked. The weapons they fired were not beams of energy or missiles. Instead, they shot something that looked like cracks in the HFY universe itself. Where these cracks touched the meridian, the ship began to fade away. "Jake, what's happening to your ship?" Ellen called out in panic. Jake looked around his bridge in horror. His crew members were becoming transparent like ghosts. The walls of his ship were fading away. But this was not destruction in any normal sense. It was as if the meridian was being erased from existence itself. "Ellen, I don't think we're dying," Jake said, his voice growing faint. "I think we're being removed from history. It's like we never existed in the first place." Dr. Turner on the Constellation was watching his instruments in amazement and terror. "Captain, the meridian isn't being destroyed, it's being deleted from reality. But there's something strange. Some of our crew members are maintaining solid readings even as the ship fades." Ellen realized what was happening. The quantum field generators. We were running maintenance on them when the attack started. "Anyone near the generators is being protected by quantum shielding." On the meridian, Jake's final words came through the communication system. "Ellen, remember us. Remember what we found. The Vorthak were right. These ships don't just kill. They erase history itself. Don't let them do the same to humanity." Then the meridian was gone. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but simply absent. It had never existed. The space where it had floated was empty, as if no ship had ever been there at all. On the Constellation, most of the crew had no memory of the meridian. When Captain Davis asked about Jake Harrison, her officers looked confused. "Who is Jake?" "Harrison, Captain. We've never heard that name before." But Dr. Turner and 6 other crew members who had been near the quantum generators remembered everything. They remembered Jake, his ship, and his crew. They remembered the discovery on Kepler 442b and the terrible truth about the alien vessels. "Captain, we have a serious problem," Dr. Turner said quietly to Ellen. "These aliens have been erasing civilizations from history for who knows how long. The meridian was just the beginning. If we don't warn Earth immediately, humanity might be next." Ellen felt cold fear spreading through her body. "How do you fight an enemy that can make you never have existed?" "I don't know," Turner replied. "But we have to try. We're the only ones who remember what really happened here. If we're erased too, then no one will ever know the truth." The alien ships were already moving away, disappearing back into whatever strange dimension they came from. But Ellen knew they would be back. They had marked humanity for erasure, and now the countdown to humanity's deletion from history had begun. "Set course for Earth," Ellen ordered. "Maximum speed. We have to warn them before it's too late." As the Constellation jumped to faster-than-light speed, Ellen wondered if they were already too late. If these aliens could erase ships and crews from existence, what could they do to entire planets and civilizations? Soon, she feared humanity would find out. Admiral Peter Kane was having breakfast in his office on Earth when the emergency alert came through. The old military man had seen many crises in his 40 years of service, but the report from Captain Ellen Davis made his coffee grow cold in his cup. "Sir, you need to read this immediately," said his aide, Lieutenant Gary Palmer. The young officer's hands were shaking as he handed over the data pad. Peter read Ellen's report 3 times before he could believe it. Ships that erased, other ships from history, an entire crew that never existed, a civilization called the Vorthak that had been deleted from all records. It sounded like science fiction, but Ellen Davis was one of his most trusted captains. "Get me Dr. Karen White on the line," Peter ordered, "and prepare the emergency council meeting. If this report is true, we have less time than we think." Dr. Karen White was Earth's leading expert on time and space. She worked in a laboratory deep underground, studying the mysteries of how time itself worked. When Peter's call reached her, she was already tracking strange readings from across human space. "Admiral Kane, I'm glad you called," Karen said over the video link. Her lab coat was wrinkled and her gray hair was messy, signs that she had been working without sleep. "Something very strange is happening to our colonies." "What do you mean?" Peter asked. 3 of our outer colonies have disappeared from all records in the past 6 hours. Not destroyed, not attacked, but erased completely. It's as if they were never built. But I remember them, and so do a few other people who were working near quantum equipment when it happened. Peter felt his heart sink. Ellen's report was true. The enemy had already begun erasing human settlements. How is this possible? He asked. Karen pulled up charts and equations on her screen. From what I can understand, these aliens have technology that lets them change the past. They go back in time and prevent things from ever happening. But there's something strange about how they do it. What do you mean? They're working backwards through time, but in a very specific pattern. They started with our newest colonies and are moving toward our older ones. It's like they're following our expansion in reverse order, erasing each settlement in the exact opposite sequence from how we built them. Before Peter could respond, more alerts came flooding in. Colony after colony was disappearing from the records. Hundreds of thousands of people were being erased from existence, as if they had never been born. We need to capture one of their ships, Peter decided. It's the only way to understand what we're fighting. The chance came 2 days later when a small alien probe was found drifting near the ruins of Colony 7. The probe had been damaged, probably by some kind of accident. Human salvage ships managed to grab it before it could escape. Karen led the team that studied the captured probe. What they found inside changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. "Admiral, you're not going to believe this," Karen said during their emergency meeting. "The probe contains data about the aliens, but they're not aliens at all." "What are you talking about?" Peter asked. "They're human, or they were human millions of years ago. According to the probe's records, they call themselves the Collective. They're what humanity became in the far future of a different timeline." The room fell silent. Peter stared at Karen as if she had gone crazy. "That's impossible." "The data is clear," Karen continued. "In their timeline, humanity discovered time travel about 2 million years ago. But every time a civilization learned to travel through time, they caused paradoxes that threatened to destroy the entire universe." She pulled up images from the probe's memory banks. They showed countless civilizations across the galaxy, all of them destroyed by their own attempts to change the past. The original humans created the Collective to solve this problem. They decided that any civilization that showed signs of developing time travel technology had to be erased before they could threaten reality itself. Dr. Alex Turner, who had traveled to Earth with Ellen Davis, spoke up from his seat. "So they're trying to save the universe by destroying everyone who might endanger it?" "Exactly. And according to their records, they've been doing this for millions of years. They've erased thousands of civilizations across the galaxy, races that might have become humanity's friends or enemies, all deleted from history because they were too dangerous to allow to exist." Peter felt sick to his stomach. "How many civilizations have they erased?" "The probe's data suggests over 50,000. And in 99.7% of all possible timelines, emerging civilizations eventually develop time travel and destroy the universe through paradoxes. The Collective believes they're saving reality itself." Ellen Davis, who had been quiet during the briefing, finally spoke. "But why are they targeting us now? Humanity hasn't discovered time travel yet." Karen looked grim. "Because we're getting close. According to their calculations, humanity will develop time travel technology within the next 50 years. They're erasing us now to prevent us from ever reaching that point." The terrible truth settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Humanity was being destroyed not for what they had done, but for what they might do in the future. Their own descendants from another timeline had decided that present-day humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. "There has to be a way to fight them," Peter said. "If they're human, they can make mistakes." Karen nodded slowly. "There might be. The probe's data shows that they've made their erasures carefully, but not perfectly. Every time they erase a civilization, they create weak points in the timeline, places where reality is thin and unstable. Can we use those weak points? Maybe. If we can develop our own temporal technology fast enough, we might be able to travel back in time ourselves. We could reach the point where the original Collective was formed and try to change their decision." Peter looked around the room at his officers and scientists. "How long do we have?" "Based on their pattern, they'll reach Earth in about 2 weeks, Karen replied. "But, Admiral, even if we succeed in going back in time, changing the past would erase our own timeline. Everyone we know and love would never exist." Peter Kane had made many hard decisions in his military career, but this was the hardest: save humanity by erasing their own version of reality, or let the collective delete them from existence entirely. Then we better make sure the choice is worth it, he said grimly. Get me every scientist and engineer we have. We're going to develop time travel in 2 weeks, or humanity ends forever. The race against erasure had begun, and the clock was ticking backward toward humanity's final moment. The next 10 days were the most desperate in human history. Every scientist, engineer, and military officer worked without sleep to build humanity's first time travel device. Dr. Karen White led the project from her underground laboratory, while Admiral Peter Kane organized the defense of Earth, but the collective was getting closer. Every day more human colonies disappeared from history. The outer rim settlements went first, then the middle colonies, and finally the inner systems. Millions of people were being erased from existence, and soon only Earth itself would remain. We're running out of time, Karen told Peter during one of their daily meetings. The temporal shielding technology is working, but we can only protect small areas. If the collective reaches Earth, we won't be able to shield the entire planet. Peter looked at the star charts showing the advancing erasure wave. How many ships do we have with temporal shielding? 12 warships and the prototype time ship, Karen replied. It's not enough to fight the collective directly, but it might be enough for what we need to do. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander Steve Collins was testing the new temporal weapons when his ship, the USS Ranger, encountered a collective vessel near the Jupiter colonies. Steve was a young officer, only 30 years old, but he had spent years studying alien technology. When the collective ship began its erasure attack, Steve did something no one had tried before. Instead of running away, he fired back. The temporal disruptor weapon hit the collective vessel directly. To everyone's surprise, the alien ship shuddered and began to fade. Not erased like human ships, but damaged in a way that made it partially exist and partially not exist. Admiral Kane, this is Collins. Steve's voice came through the communication system. I think we found their weakness. The collective ships can erase normal matter, but they can't handle weapons that exist in quantum superposition. What does that mean? Peter asked. Dr. Karen White grabbed the microphone. Steve, are you saying the temporal disruptors can hurt them? More than hurt them, Doctor. I think we can destroy them. The collective ship I hit is trying to repair itself, but it's stuck between existing and not existing. It can't complete the repair process. This was the first good news humanity had received in weeks. Karen immediately began working on improving the temporal disruptor weapons. If they could hurt collective ships, they might be able to buy enough time to complete the time travel mission. But the collective was learning too. After Steve's attack, their ships began moving differently. They stayed further away from human vessels and used more powerful erasure weapons. The battle was becoming more dangerous for both sides. We need to move faster, Peter decided. Karen, how close are we to completing the time ship? The USS Defiance will be ready in 3 days, Karen replied. But Peter, I have to tell you something. The mission we're planning is suicide. The time ship can only travel backward once. Whoever goes on this mission won't be coming back. Peter nodded grimly. He had already accepted that fact. Who's going to pilot it? I volunteer, said Steve Collins, who had just arrived back at Earth. My crew and I have already fought the collective. We know what we're up against. Steve, you don't understand, Karen said softly. If the mission succeeds, you won't just die. You'll never have existed, none of us will. We'll be creating a completely different timeline where our version of humanity never happened. Steve looked around the room at his fellow officers. Doctor, if we don't do this, humanity ends anyway. At least this way, some version of humanity survives, maybe a better version. The final preparations took 2 more days. During that time, the collective erased the last of the outer colonies and began moving toward the inner solar system. Earth's population was being evacuated to underground shelters protected by temporal shielding, but everyone knew it was only a temporary solution. Dr. Lisa Morgan, who had survived the original Discovery mission and made it back to Earth, joined Steve's crew for the time travel mission. "I was there when this all started," she told Peter. "I should be there when it ends." The USS Defiance was unlike any ship ever built. Half of it existed in normal space, while the other half existed in a quantum state that allowed it to move through time. The crew compartments were surrounded by temporal shielding so thick that the people inside would remain stable, even while traveling through different time periods. "Remember," Karen told Steve before he left, "you need to reach the original human civilization about 2 million years ago, find them before they create the collective, and show them the temporal shielding technology. Give them a third option." "What if they don't listen?" Steve asked. "Then you'll have to convince them. The future of every civilization in the galaxy depends on it." As the Defiance prepared to launch, collective ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. These were the largest vessels humanity had ever seen, city-sized ships that bent space around them like black holes. "They're here," Peter announced over the communication system. "Steve, you need to go now." The time ship activated its temporal drive just as the collective began their final assault on Earth. Steve and his crew watched through their windows as reality twisted around them. Stars aged and died in seconds, then were reborn as time flowed backward. But the collective was following them. Through the chaos of time travel, Steve could see the enemy ships pursuing them through different eras of history. The final battle would not be fought in the present but across all of time itself. "Hang on, everyone," Steve called to his crew. "We're about to find out if humanity's greatest enemy can become humanity's greatest ally." The journey through time had begun, and, with it, humanity's last desperate gamble to save not just themselves but every civilization the collective had ever erased. The journey through time was like traveling through a nightmare. Steve Collins watched from the bridge of the USS Defiance as entire civilizations rose and fell in minutes. He saw worlds full of life suddenly become empty as the collective erased them from history. "How many races have they destroyed?" asked Dr. Lisa Morgan, staring at the chaos outside their ship. "Thousands," replied Lieutenant Jim Baker, the ship's navigator. "Maybe tens of thousands. Look at that system over there. I can see 3 different civilizations being erased one after another." The collective ships were still following them through time, but they were having trouble keeping up. The human time ship was smaller and faster, able to slip through gaps in the timeline that the massive collective vessels could not follow. 2 million years and counting," announced engineer Nancy Wells from her station. "We should be getting close to the original human civilization soon." Steve felt his stomach tighten with worry. Everything depended on the next few hours. If they could not convince the ancient humans to change their path, then billions of civilizations would continue to be erased from history. The readings on their instruments began to change. They were approaching a solar system that looked familiar but different. It was Earth's solar system, but not the Earth they knew. This Earth had cities that stretched across entire continents. The technology was so advanced that it made modern, human science look like stone tools. "There," Lisa pointed at the main screen. "That's them, the original human civilization." The ancient humans had built structures in space that were larger than planets. Their ships moved without engines, powered by forces that Steve's crew could not understand. These were humans who had unlocked the secrets of the universe itself. "Try to contact them," Steve ordered. The response came immediately. A voice spoke in ancient human language, but the ship's computer translated it into modern English. "Unknown vessel, you have traveled far through time to reach us. We know why you are here. You seek to prevent the creation of the collective." Steve was surprised that they already knew about the mission. "Yes, we do. The collective has been destroying civilizations across the galaxy for millions of years. There has to be another way." "Come aboard our station," the ancient human replied. "We will speak face to face." Steve and Lisa took a small shuttle to the massive space station. The ancient humans looked like modern humans, but there was something different about them. They moved with perfect grace, and their eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. The leader introduced himself as Marcus, though Steve suspected that was not his real name. "We have been expecting you for a very long time," Marcus said. We knew that someday, humans from another timeline would come to try to change our decision. Then you know what the collective becomes, Lisa said. You know how many innocent civilizations they destroy. Marcus nodded sadly. We know. But you do not understand the full problem. In 99.7% of all possible timelines, civilizations that discover time travel destroy the universe. We have seen it happen over and over. Reality itself collapses when too many people try to change the past. But erasing entire civilizations is wrong, Steve argued. There has to be another solution. Show us, Marcus challenged. Show us this other solution you speak of. Lisa activated a portable projector and displayed the temporal shielding technology that Dr. Karen White had developed. Instead of erasing dangerous civilizations, you can shield them from temporal paradoxes. Let them develop naturally, but protect the timeline from their mistakes. Marcus studied the technology with growing interest. Other ancient humans gathered around, examining the data with amazement. This is remarkable, Marcus said finally. Instead of preventing the problem, you prevent the consequences of the problem. Civilizations can have time travel, but their mistakes cannot damage the timeline itself. Exactly, Steve said. You can protect the universe without destroying the civilizations in it. But before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The collective ships had finally caught up with them. 3 massive vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system, their weapons charging for an erasure attack. They followed us here, Lisa said in horror. If they erase this timeline, none of our changes will matter. Marcus stood up with determination in his eyes. Not if we act first. You have given us the tool we needed. Now we will use it. The ancient humans moved with incredible speed. Within minutes, they had modified their technology to include the temporal shielding systems. Instead of building ships that erased civilizations, they began building ships that protected them. The battle that followed was unlike anything Steve had ever seen. The collective ships fired their erasure weapons, but the ancient humans deflected them with temporal shields. Instead of erasing the ancient civilization, the weapons bounced back and hit the collective ships themselves. They're destroying themselves, Jim Baker said in amazement. Their own weapons are erasing them from history. As the collective ships faded from existence, the timeline began to change around them. Steve watched as reality rewrote itself. The erasure of thousands of civilizations was undone. Worlds that had been empty for millions of years suddenly bloomed with life again. It's working, Lisa whispered. All those civilizations are coming back. Marcus approached Steve with a smile. Your mission is complete. The collective will never exist in this timeline. Instead, we will become the guardians, protecting civilizations instead of destroying them. Steve felt the timeline changing around him. His own ship, his own timeline, everything he had known was fading away. But he was not afraid. He had seen the new reality being born, a reality where thousands of civilizations would live instead of being erased. Will we be remembered? Steve asked. In every timeline we protect, Marcus replied. In every civilization we save instead of erase. Your sacrifice will echo through history in ways you cannot imagine. The USS Defiance began to fade as the new timeline solidified. Steve's crew gathered on the bridge watching as their universe transformed around them. They had succeeded, but the price was their own existence. Look, Lisa pointed at the main screen. In the new timeline, Earth still existed, but it was different. It was part of a galaxy full of thousands of thriving civilizations, all protected by the ancient humans who had become guardians instead of erasers. Human ships flew alongside, alien vessels in perfect harmony. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and erasure, but a place of cooperation and growth. As Steve Collins and his crew faded into the new history, their final act was complete. They had saved not just humanity, but every civilization that had ever been erased. The ships that once killed history had become the ships that protected it. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not defeating their enemy, but transforming them into their greatest allies.